Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Student of the Game. I am Kyle Nash, the Student of the Game. And listen, if you're here, chances are you like talking sport, and we'll see you very shortly here doing that. The AFC South is going to be a fun one to preview here tonight, and arguably the best show we've had so far with the previews going on here. Listen, we've got people from each place, as we often do. We're not subbing in Mikey Byrne for anybody this week. That's not what happened. We have a different Mike in. Mike Patton of Touring the AFC South is going to represent the Titans. We'll talk to him later. Maybe he can convince me that the mayonnaise messiah is more than just a condiment of question. Then, of course, Patrick Creighton over there doing his thing in Houston. The Believe in Texans podcast and other stops there with what he's doing. He's going to step into the place and be probably the most positive I've seen him be about his Houston Texans in some time. That's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, Sports After Dark will offer us Chris Lewis. He will offer his continued tidbits of wisdom. And listen, for what I think for me is probably the toughest story to predict in the NFL in the form of the Indianapolis Colts. He's going to try to show me some light with that. Maybe I'll learn a thing or two doing it and truly earn the student moniker, the Student of the Game tonight. But listen, as a division goes, guys, the storylines in this one are particularly interesting. And as I'm going to wax poetic about on my AFC South preview for the three-point conversion, bing, the arms race, literal arms race, because quarterbacks throw with their arms, is a way different feel this year than what we had 2 years ago, where I had all teams literally running wild using the ground game, except for maybe this newer guy who's recovering from being mired in bad coaching in Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, that's a thing that happened. Everybody, Jonathan Taylor is still a thing, sure, but they're getting things going with AR there in Indianapolis. Derrick Henry, no longer a Titan. Say what you will about Tajay Spears and Pollard there. Maybe there'll be a good ground game to make a more balanced attack overall, or at least Will Levis hopes so. That's a whole thing. And the neck-breaking turnaround of the Texans going from being the back end of the bowl to the horns here in the AFC South. All compelling stuff. But one of the bigger questions, if not the biggest question, the most interesting and unknowable storyline, is the Jacksonville Jaguars losing their spots last year and missing the playoffs when they were thought to be the favorites by many. But this year, very different take. And I know what you're saying, Kyle. We hear you talk about it on the Duval Dive all the time. Bing! Perhaps you do, perhaps you don't. But here's what I know. I'd be a fool not to bring in my personal champion to help the conversation go and put him down pen to paper on a record prediction eventually. But let's bring him in. Travis D. Holmes of Big Cat Country. What's going on, my man?
Oh, I'm doing well. I'm ready to disappoint everyone with every assumption that you may have about how I feel about this team. You're probably wrong, because I'm probably just somewhere right in between.
So I'm going to tease it by saying this. Here's why I think you're right. You're going to disappoint the Duval Devout that thinks this team's going to win 13 games or something silly. And you're also going to disappoint the fans of other teams in the AFC South, and they'll hear you pick and go, it ain't going to be that high. You're going to disappoint everybody.
Yeah, however you feel, you're probably right.
Hey, man, I'm just adding credibility over and above what you do, doing what you've done during camp for the Duval Dive. Bing! That being said, man, let's get into it. We've talked a lot about the contract situation and everything that's gone well, but not really here on the Student of the Game. So, like, when you set the table for what the Jags have been up to, right? Extending Foye Oluokun, the re-sign of Josh Allen, the re-sign of Trevor Lawrence. I mean, these are extensions. I'm saying we re-sign in lieu of saying fat cash, okay? The fat cash delivered to Tyson Campbell to lock down the corner spot. I don't know if I'm forgetting somebody yet, but acquiring Gabe Davis, drafting BTJ and him looking good at camp, acquiring a new center in Mitch Morse, which everybody seems to think was the biggest problem. Just so much going on, retooling the defense after parting ways with Darius Williams and just having to rebuild there and seeing good things from Jarius Jones in camp. There's a lot to be positive for when you look at the Jags. By the way, new stadium. coming up in there and those wheels rolling on top of everything else. We tried to tell you they weren't going to London, Humpy Bumpies, but you didn't listen. All right, and that even happened on this show. Shouts to Colin Cronum of the Irish NFL Show for explaining the taxes alone prevent that from happening. But nobody wants to have that conversation. It's too nerdy. Well, it wasn't when Cullen did it because he has an Irish accent.
I was about to say, yeah, I'm an accounting major. I've been yelling about this tax thing for years. So, yeah, I'm here for that.
Listen, first of all, I wish you told me sooner because Colin knocked me over. It was great. Anyways, many things, but it's okay. Hey, let Colin shine. It's all right. You know,
I love Colin.
He is fun, isn't he? But with all that being said, if there is to be a cloud that that inches you towards your "this team makes me drink" shirt, what would you say that it is?
I mean, the cloud is always going to be the offensive line. I mean, that's always what it's going to come to, because from the moment that the Jaguars draft, from the day that they said, and the Jaguars select Trevor Lawrence, and they already had Doug Peterson in the building, the minimum, the goal was always going to be playoff team or bust. And the floor for that team was always going to be 500. Well, we're in the 17 game season now, so you may as well just say that the floor is 9-8.
Right.
Very much so. So the fact that they go 9-8 in that first season, awesome. That's exactly the floor. That's exactly what we expect of you, Trevor. That's exactly what we expect of you, Doug. And the floor should be raised if you have an adequate GM. That was always going to be a question mark, whether or not the team had an adequate GM. And they ended up going 9-8 in the second season, when honestly they probably should have won 12 to 13 games. And then now we're where we are. And that remains the question of, who is this team? Is this the team that overachieved in 2022? Or is this the team that underachieves like significantly at the end of the 2023 season? And it's just that's hopium. That just depends on who you are. Are you someone of the Duval Dive who drinks the teal every morning and you just believe it with the teal shades and you got the teal beads on? And like, if you're that person, then yeah, you believe this team is a 13-win team. I, as you already mentioned, own the "this team makes me drink" shirt. So I am a "this team makes me drinkaholic." I'm just off that narcotic, and I'm questionable on this, but I'm willing to trust the team, if that makes any sense. So I'm sort of in that middle. But who are they? That's really what this comes down to.
When we've gone to mini camp, training camp, joint practice with the Bucks, when you've been in preseason, people are asking the question of, what's it like there? What are they feeling?
Right. So let me answer your question, and I do apologize. I realized only in you responding, like, wait a minute, I never actually answered your question, but it is the O-line. I mean,
you answered it out the gate, and Bill, you totally did. That was your
my
first
apology. Then then we're good. That's
you were
it.
so efficient. You forgot you did the ish. That's actually kind of awesome, Travis. I'm not going to front. No, but with you having answered that question, let me get back on kill. Yeah. So with all the stuff we've seen leading into this conclusion of training camp, final cuts coming next week, all of that stuff. Which, hey, if things work out right, there'll be an episode of Duval Dive that Tuesday. Bing! So I think the piece there is that feeling was, we don't know what it was. They're just trying to stay focused on getting better and nothing else. And I know that sounds like coach speak when Doug Peterson says that, but damn it, I felt it there. What about you, man? Does that kind of really speak to the feeling of what was going on in camp there?
Well, it says, like, that's one thing for the coach to say it, because the coach is supposed to say it, and the coach is bred and trained to say it, because their goal, their job is just to say nothing in the best way possible. But it's a whole different thing when you start hearing the players say the exact same thing, and I've heard that exact same thing from multiple players. So it's one thing for the coach to say it; it's another thing for these other guys to mimic it. And it's like, wait a minute, no, this is a real thing that they really didn't believe in. Christian Kirk said it at the end of last season. They thought that this switch would turn on, and because they couldn't really explain why 2022 happened, it was just kind of this thing that just happened, and they slowly started realizing this isn't something that's just going to happen randomly. It's something that you have to make happen by process and kind of figuring that out. So this offseason has been all about the work and not about the result. It's about, hey, we're going to work, we're going to work, we're going to work, we're going to work, because we know if we put in that work, the results will simply come. And what we're not reading these headlines and having these expectations and all of this stuff. We'll leave that to you media guys. We got to get our heads out of the media and get our heads into the field. And I'm here for that part.
Yeah, stop reading them papers. No, I hear you. And I think that was intimated by us too on the dive last year at times. Were they reading too many headlines? And leave it to a straight shooter like Christian Kirk to acknowledge, yo, this is what it was last year. And concentrating on the work. This is something we heard from Josh Allen, in mini camp about engaging that and dealing with that and attacking that. But I'll put it this way. What is the thing? And I guess the obvious answer is O-line play, but the problem is with covering the team as extensively as we do, we don't feel good about that improvement.
All right, let's get it.
Hold on. The question I was about to ask was, what is it they have to improve? But that answer is already incredibly obvious. It's written for us. So I'll ask this. Trevor Lawrence, can he stay healthy a full 18?
I feel that is less of a question and more of a, it happened last year, sure, and that is something that's going to be on the front mind of all Jaguar fans, especially seeing just how frequently he was injured last year, because it wasn't like a one-time thing. It was a multiple smaller injuries in one season, and it was the first time we'd seen that. So I can get it, recency bias, I understand it. However, this is also the same Trevor Lawrence who was frankly just, his mom and dad must be Gumby. He's had so many major looking injuries in 2021 and 2022, and both seasons he had multiple of those kind of tackles. One's coming to mind is the Detroit Lions game in 2022, and I'm like, dude, there's no way he's not injured, and then he's not injured, and it's like, wait, who are you? Like, it's just kind of one of those things.
Is he just tough? Is he like a pretty Brett Favre? Is it that? I don't know.
Well, tough is one thing, but your limbs they don't matter how tough your your limbs ain't got toughness. They ain't in your genes, bro. Like that's a different thing. So all that to say, wow, he's been very durable in all times other than last year. I have to believe that is who he is based on the book that's already been written, even when he had a terrible 2021 roster surrounding him, including an O-line.
Right.
So at that time. So I'm going to go back to saying, if you're not going to allow the dude to get sacked freaking 45, 50 times in a season, then you're probably going to be okay as far as his health is concerned. And if I have to go off of, then yeah, I think he's going to be fine. I think the real issue on this team, or the question on this team, is less around the tackle play and more around the interior O-line, the left guard situation. Who is Ezra Cleveland and how well will he actually play? And the primary question mark is Mitch Morris. Is he the 2022 Mitch Morris? Or is he the 2023 Mitch Morris that's good, but also Buffalo's still okay with letting him go? Like, that's still a top 5 pass blocking center, just to be clear.
Right.
But that is also a guy who may give you issues with run blocking, depending on, the play and depending on who he's up against, nose tackle, and things of that nature. So again, that's the biggest issue, is those two spots, left guard and center, for the Jaguars, and if that allows them to run the ball just a little bit better than Luke Fortner did at center last year.
And all they need is just a crease to give the perception of an inside run threat, so defenses stop attacking the outsides. And then if they do that, Trevor can start to do some bootlegging maybe. So if the guards do fall apart on the play, he's escaping.
Right.
And, I mean, is more than one first down with his legs something the Jags should consider with the line play being in the state that it's in?
I don't want to. Not if I just paid you. Not hey man, not if I just paid you a GDP of a small country. I don't want to. I am not a fan of you. Don't never run. Never run. I need you back there in the chair throwing the ball. Nothing more. Like, I understand some people like that, but at the same time, like, some people have made careers off of that. Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson at one point. These guys made careers off of using their legs. And hey, to each their own. Cool. It's an aspect of your game I don't want to necessarily get rid of. However, I want to see you win this with your arm, because that is a thing that is able to be repeated. That is a thing that you can grow old with, and that is the thing I want you learning and building on top of, especially knowing that you are pretty much a younger quarterback still.
Yeah, using that part of your brain instead of your legs, I feel. But I'm not saying make it the focus.
Yeah.
I'm saying more than one first down per game.
Yeah. You just said sprinkle it on there a little bit. Give it a little
A little
garnish.
spice. Like let's
Yeah.
let's sprinkle the food like it's something I'm bringing to the barbecue rather than the grandma's house. That's what
No, I'm here for that. As long as it ain't raisins, we all right. So yeah, we can do that. Uh,
do that. I knew you were gonna do that.
no, we can work with this, bro. We can work with this. Just bring the right spices. We all right.
Something to where if they make the mistake of over attacking the A gap, Trevor Lawrence reminds them I can make you pay for that. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, we can absolutely do that. That makes total sense.
So yeah, no, I do not want I do not wish to see Trevor Lawrence be a melanin enhanced Deshaun Watson or Trevor Lawrence or excuse me, deficient Deshaun Watson or Trevor Lawrence. That is not the goal. I don't think we want that. No.
Yeah. No, but we have discussed the only trepidation I have surrounding the main trepidation I have surrounding the performance of the offensive line is less how they will perform because I know everyone in Duval County is down on the O line because they haven't really seen the starting O line unit yet. So all they're doing is judging. Hey, they didn't play well this preseason game. Well, yeah, they were missing 2 of the 5 starting, offensive linemen. Well, hey,
But
they didn't play well in week 2. Well, yeah, they were missing 3 of the 5 starting linemen because they set most of the starters except the ones who didn't play the other week.
I
You're
say
judging.
leaving out Anton Harrison getting
Yeah,
2 pancakes essentially on a play. Like,
you're
yeah,
judging incomplete units and then judging them negatively because you have PTSD from 2023. Don't do that. That's preseason 101, baby. You judge individual players, you don't judge overall units because the situations that apply to make these sacks happen, having Tyler Shatley at your left guard is not going to happen, or having I don't even know who else, like having these other guys at these other spots. It creates chinks in the protection. So let's just woosah. We are good. Yes, Grusfaba. We are good, and let the people play because Anton Harrison is still Anton Harrison.
oh yeah.
And Ezra Cleveland played well in that game with nearly a clean sheet. So at this current moment in time, I have no concern at all until they give me a reason to be concerned. Week 2 of the season, week 3 of the season, if they're having issues blocking or running the ball in the passing game, running the ball and blocking in the passing game, then you can talk to me. For the moment, I think this is going to be an average to maybe even below average offensive line unit, which means that this team is probably going to be an above average team.
Okay, and I mean, listen, you can have 9 wins and compete in the NFC. That just doesn't fly as much in the AFC.
Shoot, this team was 9-8 last season with the wheels falling off and everything else at the end of the year. I mean, they were 8 wins with 6 games to go. Like, I'm not worried about that piece at all. Again, I do believe that 9-8 season is the bare minimum for this team, and if they get anything less, oh boy, none of them ain't gonna be here next year. Like, that's honestly how I feel.
Yeah, if that happens, I mean, it may be time to balk at Balky's career in Jacksonville at that point. That might actually happen. I normally would be inclined to say that's an overreaction a touch, but I cannot do that here. I'm inclined to think you're onto something there, man. You got me on that one for sure. So, well, I mean, let's touch on this a little bit too. We got a little bit of time. We focused a lot on the offense just because, criticism is part of what these shows do when the offense has left us a healthy amount to criticize with some stuff we've seen.
Yeah.
There's other conversations to be had on how you can make a good pick, but it may not be the right pick. But we'll save that for the Duval Dive. Bing! Anyways, see, you saw me work that bing in there, right? You like that?
Yes, sir.
But with all that in mind, the defense, I mean, it's funny how people are warming up to Mason Smith as load management for Eric Armstead to see that he's there later in the year.
Bro, I said that the day of the draft. That was immediate.
Did I say it was you that had
Oh,
trouble?
I know. I just think it's crazy when people say these things like, "Oh yeah," I'm like, "Yeah, that was always the plan." Yeah.
You may have said it the day of the draft, but I know we talked about it on the Duval Dive.
Yes, sir.
Just bing. My bad. But with all that being said, Let me take you here, partner. What about the defense makes you most confident? Because like I said, they sealed up a lot of things in the boardroom and got a lot of contracts signed. So what is it? I mean, what in the defense, if you were to say this is what, if I'm coaching against them, this is what I'm planning for first.
I mean, this is the thing that I love about this defense, and I know I'm supposed to say that the two edges who had the most sacks in the NFL last year, and Josh Hines Allen and Trevon Walker. I know I'm supposed to say because Duval, but no, I'm not. I'm not going to do that. What makes me most intrigued by this defense, what makes me most excited about this defense is Eric Armstead, is Mason Smith, is Devon Hamilton, is the fact that they got those three guys, and one of those guys are not even going to be in the field because they just can't fit them on the field if that made in that four-man front. Like that is your your top three-man rotation as far as trying to get to the quarterback for your interior pass rush. Like for me already, that's just like you can't coach an offensive line out of stopping power. You can help chip, you know what I mean? Like you can help chip with the running backs and the tight ends and all this stuff for the speed rushes and everything else. But what do you do when a dude puts his helmet in your chin and you have to anchor and you simply don't got the weight on your lower body? Like that is a different thing. And so when you have someone like Eric Armstead, someone like Devon Hamilton and Mason Smith running this gap deep, attacking the gap, and you simply don't have the power, you're going to have these offensive linemen in the other quarterback's lap. And for me, that is a great thing that gives me confidence because the Jaguars historically simply have not had an interior pass rush. So even when they have a solid defensive end, they're not getting sacks because the quarterback can step up. I think that goes away in 2024.
I can't put it better. I mean, what are you going to do? Am I supposed to battle against you picking the former Niners the main reason? How about no? What are we doing here? Come on now. Read the room. Anyway,
Oh man.
With that being said, and I think you'll be surprised by my number because I'm surprised as I have it here in front of me. Let me be clear. But what do you predict the Jacksonville Jaguars finish at? I know you're going to do a range, but I'm going to need you to commit to one, okay?
No, I got you. No, I got you. I still, as much as I want to say something like 13 wins, 14 wins, exactly what I heard when I was in the Buffalo Bills space the other day, which I thought was just.
Oh, why you got to bring that up, man? Look, I just hate. Some fool says no, the Bills are going to win 12 games. Shut up.
I said I come in peace. I don't want to argue with you. I just want to understand your logic.
You keep being political. Then he says, "No, that's not my optimism. That's my pick. Stop it."
Oh, but
I knew the Bills car guy. The Bills car guy who came on here and said with a reasonable air quotes 10 wins, which I couldn't commit to, obviously. But 12. Go ahead. Sorry. Why you got to bring that up?
Anyway. I had to. So I had to. I don't want to be that guy.
Next time I'm falling asleep in the car, you bring that up. I'll wake right up.
But yeah, so I don't want to be that guy. But at the end of the day, we've already established my thought process is at 8 wins, I think gets everyone fired. 9 wins, I feel, is the floor for this team. I feel if everything goes wrong outside of serious injuries to the quarterback position, I think this team is already 9-8. That is who I believe they are. With that being said, I do believe this is a 10-win team. In the AFC South, I do think the Tennessee Titans are hot garbage. I am not a fan of Will Levis. We've established this. It is what it is. Sorry, Mike Patton. I love you, bro. I just don't agree with this whole Mayo Messiah thing. Like I'm not a fan.
Don't worry, he can go later to talk about it. It's a thing.
So I do believe that this team is that this division, will be a little bit of a dogfight simply because the Colts are a great support staff. That they're a great team surrounding their quarterback. The quarterback might have some questions early on, but they have a great support staff around him. Everyone loves the Texans, everyone but Vegas seemingly, because they only have them as an 8.5 under over.
I don't get that.
Yeah, well, it's like everyone seems to believe that this AFC South will be a dogfight, and I am in agreement. I think that's what it's going to be, a lot like it was last season. I just think it's going to be a lot closer than people are willing to acknowledge because of these great defensive fronts that are going to put some pressure on all of these quarterbacks. So with that being said, I do believe that this is going to be a 10 and goodness gracious, a 10-6. 10-7,
Yeah.
17 games. Yes, 10-7. Jacksonville Jaguars team. Now the question of the hour is, does that win the AFC South? Depends on which 10 you get. Like,
I can't say it because I can't spoil it. I got Patrick Creighton coming on later. So, but
so that makes it difficult. But 10 wins would get you in the playoffs. And I do believe the AFC South will be one of those divisions that will allow a second playoff team. So either way, I think we'll be good there.
Because when you say hot garbage, anybody other than Patrick LaVon Mahomes II and company in the AFC West is in fact that currently. They're all rebuilding, right? Just as an example. So I mean, I could point right to that. Bam, we got it solved. And if Buffalo takes a bigger step back, then all of a sudden it's looking a lot more open. But Travis, the universe is in a very strange place right now.
Okay.
Jacksonville Jaguars go 10-7 according to the student of the game's notes. Right?
Let's go.
I got 3-3 for the Jags. Whether they split the Texans or get swept by the Texans, they could either sweep or split with the Titans as well. That uncertainly puts me at 3-3. I think they split with the Colts because they face Indy soon enough to where AR will still be healthy. I'm to a place I'm confident about. Don't worry. I got my dude Silu in the digital green room. He's going to help me with that later. Here's the part that might raise some eyebrows. The AFC East is 3-1.
Okay.
And the only reason I don't have them 4-0 is because they're coming out the gate week 1 against that offense in Miami, and simply put, with all the new faces, with all the young faces, and a new defense, those DBs are going to have problems. And I expect that up front, full and foremost. Unless the defensive line has probably the single best game we've seen since 2022, the Fins are going to win that one. I got 3-1 against the AFC East. I got them splitting the NFC North, probably the Lions and the Pack, but who knows, and then
beat the Pack, lose against the Lions.
And then, okay, let's say they do that. Do you know what they're going to do against, at one point the Vikings weren't the question mark before with JJ McCarthy.
Yeah.
You don't know what is going to happen with the Bears. That could be the ones where the Jaguar and force you to wear the shirt and they give one up to the Bears. That's something that could happen, right?
2-0 in London. I'm staking the flag, American flag. Let's go.
Oh, wait, what are the London games again? Remind me.
I thought it was the Bears and the Patriots, right?
Oh, 2-0. Yeah, okay. You know what? You sold me. I'm not going to change it now, but because of the uncertainty, they could just as easily lose to the Pack, still go 2-2, right? Browns, Eagles, Raiders. I don't believe in the Eagles. I'm sorry. And that alone has me 2-1. I think there'll be a matchup problem with the Browns. And man, that defense is something stupid, and they will make Trevor make mistakes because the offensive line will collapse in the middle against the Browns. They just have the right. It's a bad matchup is what it is. It's not that the Browns are a better team. It's just a bad matchup.
It is. It'll be a hard fought punch in the mouth game. Yes.
But hey, we got guys we're friendly with in Cleveland. So if that happens, it'll still be a fun show when they have us on. It is what it is. But man, we're at that time. Tell them where you can be found though, Travis.
Hey, as the screen states right here, I can be found at bigcatcountry.com. All of my writings covering the Jacksonville Jaguars, press conferences, training camp. But now that we're done with that, we'll have game wrap-ups, all of it. bigcatcountry.com, and also the Duval Dive with student of the game, Kyle Nash. Yes, that beautiful face right here. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Listen to the past shows. Listen to all the future shows. Come on, man. Get the information.
The Duval Dive has shown a lot of good times with you on TikTok, dog. So make sure that they subscribe to that as well. I'm just saying.
Man, I gotta get me a TikTok. My only TikTok is the Duval Dive. That's it. I gotta get my own just to see what the folks are talking. See what the young kids are talking about, man.
We're guaranteed at least one more follow that way. That's perfect. And of course, Saturday 8 p.m. will be the next Duval Dive, and a following one Tuesday with Jamal Sage Sear, New Ford Jacks, talking about the final cutdowns. And there'll be other announcements on Saturday. It's going to be kind of a big flipping deal. So look out for that. But in the meantime, Travis, excellent job, man. And I'll see you Saturday, brother.
Yes, sir.
And listen, it's always fun. I love going from one great mind to another on this show, mostly because it's my house and it's like, oh no, that guest I really like drinking with left. Hey, this dude came in and he's got a bottle with him. A bottle of knowledge in the form of Sports After Darks. Chris Lewis, what's going on, C. Lou? Oh no, I can't hear him.
Hold on.
I got you. Okay, cool.
There we
Cool.
go. There we go.
Yeah.
What's up, man?
Hey, great to see you again. Hey, I'm happy to announce to you that I have gotten used to short hair, Silu. So no more wings protection. We're done with that.
Yeah. We done with that.
And listen, for as many questions as I'm going to have for you, and as much confusion as I have, I can't talk too much trash. Because listen, I for all my ego, I am also the most humble man in the room. See what I did there? And I'm able to say that I'm going to lean on you heavy for a lot of things. Because and I would shout you out on Twitter. I might be more excited for this defense than this offense. And you're like, yeah, that's weird. Why? Because I feel like I know more what's going on the defense. And I guess, I mean, let's listen. Let's talk with the weapon in the room, AR, and his health, man. Like, it's not, I was about to say Brett Favre. It's not Aaron Rodgers bad, right? It's not Kirk Cousins bad, but I have questions.
Yeah, I mean, there's question marks for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, let me do it Vegas style. Let me point blank you. Let me put you on the spot, because you a grown man. You can handle this. If I were to set the over under at 8.5, what would you take?
I'll take the over.
Okay. So and listen, these aren't Andrew Luck offensive lines. I know Quentin Nelson's getting old, but like he's got something there. Tell me why you're confident.
We won 9 games last year with Gardner Minshew as our starting quarterback. Yeah. So and I mean, granted, like, we didn't play the best we didn't have the best quarterback play going against us last year because a lot of quarterbacks got hurt, different things that was going on. But like I said, we had Gardner Minshew at quarterback last year and we won 9 games. As the way it goes is in Shane, I trust, and Shane we trust. I think with Shane Steichen, whether AR is healthy or not, I think he'll dial up an offense that can make some noise. I think we scored over 20 points in pretty much every single game last year.
Mm-hmm.
We had one of the best, well, not one of the best, but we had, I would say, probably a top 10 offense maybe in points per game or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I mean, I and then we get a healthy JT back. Last year, JT missed a few. I think he missed about 7 games because he missed the first 4, and then I think he missed 3 with a thumb injury.
I mean, it's just the physical there, Silu. Like, all the mental aspects and the focus and the distraction surrounding and you pointed out correctly, the alleged, rift that was taking place here and all that. And you listen, you cleared that up for me on this show last year. Man, I'm never going to take that away from you because it was awesome. And so I think, but that being out of the way is good for more production, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that being out of the way is great. No more distractions, off the field distractions. We had a fairly quiet off season this year, so I like that compared to what it was last year. And like you said, the offensive line, it's not the Andrew Luck offensive lines. Those offensive lines were terrible up until Andrew Luck's last few years. Last year,
let's call it what it is. When Quentin got drafted.
Yeah, and last year, Quentin returned to being like a top 5 offensive lineman. He played really well last year. Will Fries, I think, played well last year. The other guard, because last year the right guard was one of the positions I was like, man, we need to fix that. But Will Fries played well last year. And then hopefully the big thing now is hoping Braden Smith stays healthy, because last year we had to start Blake Freeland all last year, pretty much. Because Braden Smith got hurt. So with all 5 of them being healthy, you keep AR upright. I don't know. I just like I think I said it before. I think our floor is probably around 8-9 wins, and our ceiling is around 11.
Okay, well, before we get to the end of the segment, I'm gonna make you lock that down. That's coming, so be ready.
Yeah. But, I know.
I mean, I would about you, Kyle. What? You're just a student. It's okay. That was awesome, man. I love. It's not even like you're talking trash. It's like, I'm just confident. What about it? It's man. Like, and that's what's cool about you, Sports After Dark cats, is like you talk. I mean, you do make jokes and comments. Sure, that's the point of Sports After Dark. But you don't talk trash like your cohorts do. You just kind of here's a fact, do something, and it's so beautiful. Like, and it's unfortunate. Like, I'll usually have Ash on the show, but I didn't have a space for the Cowboys because I was in Greece. I had the huddle up crew
Oh,
coming.
nice. See, I'm trying to go to Greece, man. You had to throw that in my face.
bro. Think of me as a scout, assuring you it's the right move for you to make, bro. The people, the friendliest people outside of the U.S. I've ever interacted with are in Greece. Like, I mean, you know. I mean, you think I got the skin tone from being Hispanic in Florida? No, sir. That's my origin. And all the people are beautiful there, by the way, as a side note. Like, you know, I mean, I can't be looking too much because I got my wife and my daughter there, but like,
yeah.
And it just like the dudes are handsome too. I'll say it. I'm confident. People are beautiful. The sights were amazing. I'm in Athens eating dinner. Look over. Oh, look, there's the Parthenon, 2,000 years old. Just here while I'm eating dinner. That's cool. You know, yeah, man.
Yeah, see, that's dope, man.
Do it, man. I listen. If I get into that exorbitantly rich and somebody leaves me money, man, but I will take you and your people with me. Let's do it.
There we go.
Let's go. Cheer for that winning lottery ticket from me, C-Lou.
For sure.
But anyway, see, now I got to transition back to the Colts defense. How do I do that? Well, yeah, we'll go back to me being weird, like offering to go to Greece with you. Like, I'm confident in this defense. Like, you somehow or another, and as much, man, listen, you've seen me stand on DeForest Buckner for years, okay?
Yeah.
And have improved it around him. That defensive front, formidable. I get it. You got some youth in the secondary. Okay. It's not like they're awful, you know? And I know the linebacker position was a little quirky because, you know, there are some, shall we say, more senior individuals that struggle with some things. And I'm delaying because I'm forgetting what he changed his name to. So I'm struggling. But
Shaquille.
Thank you. Yeah, because I think Griffin twins. I cover UCF, man.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I don't even think he's in the division anymore, Shaquille Griffin. And Shaquille
so.
UCF Hall of Famer. It's a whole thing. Anyway, so I know some of that's in turnover, but like this defense is slept on. Would you not agree?
Yeah. So I mean, for me, with this defense, I'm really excited about our defensive line, and I'm really excited about our linebacking core. Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed. I think Zaire is quickly becoming a household name. EJ, this is a contract year for him. And he played extremely well last year too. EJ played extremely well last year. Both of our linebackers had over 100 tackles last year, which is crazy. And like you said, the defensive line, they'd have put so much talent on that defensive line. And then adding Latu, and just, I mean, and I get it. It was a preseason game, week 1. But watching him go against a starting left tackle in the league and get pressure on whatever quarterback was back there for like 8 snaps, it's exciting to see. Like, it's just exciting to see that we have somebody that can consistently win and put some pressure on the quarterback. And if one of them forced a turnover, another one almost forced a turnover. And, you know, and the big thing is Gus Bradley. Can we get Gus Bradley to change some things around? Can we get him to evolve a little, just a little bit? It ain't even got to be much. Just evolve just a little and change some things around. And I think we could be cooking with something for sure.
Well, and mentioning evolution, like, listen, I get it. Last year it was AR, Anthony Richardson, and Gardner Minshew. Now it's Anthony Richardson and a guy who performed so well as a backup that he stole the comeback player of the year from a dude that defied death. Okay. So yeah, I'm still on that, C-Lou. Deal with it. Okay. This is the thing I'm gonna say. It's not your fault, it's not the Colts' fault. Okay. But I think the analogy I'll use, and I think we had this conversation last year, but for those the listeners that haven't heard it yet, okay, the analogy I will use is that AR is a bulk eater Michael Vick, and instead of Gardner Minshew, it is Joe Flacco. That is the Matt Schaub, right? That Atlanta team was going to miss Michael Vick for at least 2 to 4 weeks every season because of his style of play. But to be able to get a backup that could put the W's in there, a few W's in there while he's out, is essential to the success. We're on to something there, right? That's what they're doing.
Yeah. For sure. I was happy that we signed. I mean, Joe Flacco he played good last year. Like you said, he stole comeback player of the year. So I was happy that we got him, and he can run the offense. And again, in Shane we trust, because even when Anthony went out last year, Shane was able to change the offense for Gardner Minshew. Took some running plays out, but put some other stuff in that Gardner Minshew could do well. And I think the same thing would happen with Joe Flacco if AR was to go out this year, which I'm hoping he don't. I don't think he will. I think this year would be a good season for him. I don't think he's going to get injured this year.
I mean, well, that's first of all, sir, that's bold. I don't know that I'll be able to let you get about that with maybe going. Is it? Though?
I get bold every year, man. I say something bold every year.
I do remember the first time you came on. I forget what your claim was, but I do remember dunking on you pretty hard. And then you came back with me on that Jonathan Taylor, it ain't as bad as you think thing, and you kind of evened the score. So, like, I get you. No, but and bold doesn't mean wrong. Let me lead with that, too.
Yeah.
But for me, I mean, I feel like if, let's say, he sits 2 to 4 games to recover, and Flacco's at the helm, it can do something, right? Like, I'm just looking here at the schedule. Okay, let me get it more precise, because I have the team that you may put in Flacco in for load management. That's right, we're load managing second-year quarterback. I know it sounds funny, but hear me out, okay? Let's say he gets hit by Jeff Simmons, the defensive tackle, in Week 16, the Tennessee Titans. He's a bad mamma jamma. You'll acknowledge that.
Mm-hmm.
He gets hit by Simmons. Ow. AR gets hurt. You got the Giants the next week. You want to tell me you don't put Flacco in that game? I'm just saying, bro. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Flacco could win us that game if he had to play.
If you could put in CJ Beathard and beat the Panthers as the Jags did last year, this can happen. That's all I'm saying. Little load management, man. He's going to get set out a little bit. I think that's what's going to happen. Am I throwing shade at the Giants? Yes. Well, and actually, here there's a very friendly stretch from Week 13 to Week 15, and I can make an argument the Week 14 bye is the toughest opponent. The Patriots and the Broncos are bookending the bye. Come on, Flacco's going to get a little time to get the dude some rest. Right? Like, do it. Anyways,
I mean, the Patriots, we handled them last year, and Broncos ain't moving me none.
I mean, I like Bo Nix, but not in year one, man. That's too much. That's too much. Anyways, man. Well, you know what? I think we're getting to that portion, man. Let me put you on the spot. What is it that you see from the Colts this year?
This year, I mean, I see us competing for the division again. Last year, it came down to that game versus the Texans. It came down to that game, to fourth and 3 or 4th and 1, whatever that last play was. I mean, that's really what it came down to last year. We didn't necessarily get better on paper. I mean, you added Latu in the draft. You added Adonai Mitchell in the draft. My biggest issue going into the draft was our secondary. Well, not going into the draft. Our biggest issue going into the offseason, to me, was our pass rush and our secondary. Now, granted, we had 50 sacks last year, and everybody want to throw those numbers out. But over half of those sacks were against really bad offensive lines. You had the Panthers
anomalies. Thank you, C. Lou.
Yeah. Like when you really look at those games, we weren't winning on third downs. Like, we had issues with getting off the field on third down. So like I said, most of those sacks came against really bad defense or offensive line play. But the secondary to me was the biggest issue. I wanted us to get a defensive lineman in the draft. We did that. We went and got Latu. Then we signed Raekwon Davis. That's what I'm really excited about, Latu, man. But we got Raekwon Davis from Miami, which I think was a great pickup because behind Grover Stewart, we didn't have anybody that could really stop the run. So adding Raekwon Davis, that was good because Taven Bryan isn't good in run support.
If you're not high on Davis, he's still an upgrade. Like, this is the point.
He's still an upgrade.
Right. Yeah. This is the point
Exactly.
of Mitch Morris in Jacksonville. Like, he wasn't that great a center in Buffalo. Maybe he is. Maybe he isn't. He's still an upgrade over Fortner. Grover,
Exactly.
who's one of the most slept on players in the division, if not the damn league. And listen, it's DeForest Buckner and Jeffrey Simmons' fault, man. Like, behind those two, how do you do that stuff? You know,
That's true.
Grover's an excellent player, man. He definitely gets slept on. Much respect. And to get more load for that load to attack with is just smart, man. I'm sorry. I want
Exactly.
so you knew someone else knew.
Exactly. So yeah, my biggest thing was free safety, and I still wanted the young guys at corner but I wanted to add a vet to the room. Like, I wanted to add a vet outside corner to the room just to kind of help them and push them. So I'm not really mad at the cornerback position. Granted, it still needs some work. But I mean, I'm not mad with the second year players going back out there playing corner. My biggest issue right now is the free safety position. But if everything can come together, like I said, I think we compete for the division. I just can't see our offense taking a step back next year.
Yeah. Well, I listen.
think,
oh, go ahead. Keep going. I thought you were.
I was just gonna say, I think we added enough talent on offense to where it could keep the same pace as last year or be more explosive. Adonai Mitchell is a very explosive player. If AR can continue to develop, you add more explosion to the offense, especially when you get JT back healthy. We know what JT can do when he's healthy.
People are not talking enough about him either, too. Like, I'm heading into this, and I think it was a tweet you mentioning JT. I even had to take who's JT? Oh, right. The only thing is done in half a decade. Yeah. How, anyway, that's right. I said it. No, but like, I say that it's like the fact of how forgotten he is in any analysis on the Colts. That isn't you, of course, Silu, doing your thing with Sports After Dark. I'm not including you. But yeah, it's amazing how his name disappears. I even forgot.
Yeah. And I mean, I get it. Like, the past 2 seasons haven't been his healthiest seasons. While he still has produced, it hasn't been like he's really been on the field much to really show, he's still JT. So, I mean, I get it. I completely understand. I mean, the most news he got last year was the whole offseason stuff, the contract stuff. But he's back now. We have none of that to worry about. So him and AR add a completely different dynamic to our offense, especially with both of them sharing the backfield. Like that, and I don't think people are really, and I get it. AR, if he gets hurt, whatever, but people aren't talking about that enough either, where it's like that explosiveness that you have in the backfield from your quarterback and your running back, whether it's AR using his arm or his legs, I can't see our offense taking a step back. I think our offense moves forward. I think they actually take a step forward, and I think it's a lot more explosive than it was last year.
The closest thing I can liken it to is a Cam Newton offense, in particular the one that made it to the Super Bowl and ended up losing to just probably the most slept on defense in that decade, right?
Yeah, and that Broncos defense was nasty.
Oh my God. And the fact that they were broken apart and sold off as if they were a Marlins World Series winning franchise. I mean, a baseball reference. Are you proud of me, Silu? But I say all that to say, like, because we're in a culture with the NFL right now where running prowess, unless your name is Harbaugh, is not accepted, right?
Yeah.
And people don't know how to process this kind of stuff. And by the way, your receiver core there in Indy is better than anything Cam had. I humbly think.
Exactly.
and especially after Steve Smith retired. Don't get me started on that. Or I should say retired, but left for Baltimore. Right?
Yeah.
He was still a badass then. Anyways, I'm tangenting again. But I appreciate what you're saying, and it has the opportunity to be incredibly fun. That being said, you told me between 8 and 11. Are you telling me 9 wins or are you telling me 10?
If everything goes right, we win 11 games. So I know there's gonna be some slip ups here and there. So I mean, I'm gonna probably go 10 games.
10 games. Okay. We're close. We're close. I just don't share in your optimism with I feel like the magic number. I would still say over for 8.5. Now that I'm forced to, because I have this show and predictions are like, if you don't do a prediction show, if you host a show, like somebody puts you on a cross or something, it's just awful. But the whole thing, when I'm forced to ask myself how many games do I think AR will play, I say a slight over. I have him at 10 because I said it at 9.5, right? So if he plays 10 games, that's the assumption. I think this AFC South is going to be tough. And I honestly think that the Texans are just a horrible matchup for the Colts. I got them getting swept there. I think they split everywhere else. I got 2-4 in the AFC South. I see you splitting the AFC East. That's 2-2 there. I also, because I don't know what the hell to make of them, I see you splitting the NFC North. The Pack is going to be tough, but they're just as much beatable. That game could go either way. I will capitulate. You're not beating the Lions. I'm sorry. Just don't see that happening. No disrespect, and if it does, please gloat. It's cool. I'll take it like a man. It's fine.
Oh yeah, I'm a gloat.
And then I think the other piece between the Broncos, Giants, and Steelers, you could go 3-0 in that stretch, but I think that Steelers defense is tough enough to make AR second guess. And I'll be honest, if I were actually betting that over for AR, I'm watching that Steeler game. And if he makes it through it, I'm confident I'm getting my money. That's what I'm saying. Right?
So my thing with the Steelers game, they had the same defense last year and we ran through them like it was nothing. And I don't like their quarterbacks. I mean, I like Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields can still develop, but everybody and their mama know how I feel about Russell Wilson. And if he's playing, GG's, man. That's all I can. And that offensive line is still terrible to me. So I think that offensive line is still bad.
It's fast. It's hard. I mean, listen, maybe this is the year. I still feel weird that I called out Mike Tomlin for starting Mitchell Trubisky over Kenny Pickett. And I feel like I was justified in doing so. Now, I know everybody thinks that Kenny Pickett is a bum suddenly because he had a bad season the next season, but like, I don't know. We have a separate episode on that. But yeah, I like I said, you could go 3-0 with the bonus games. I'm putting you at 2-1, which means I have the Colts at an 8-9. But as I said, there's a couple flips where you could, if we did this pod next week, I might say 9-7. I don't know. I can't get to 10. I'm not that brave. But
yeah,
based on this alone, and again, I'm not going to spoil my Texans pick because Patrick Creighton closes the show. But with the Jags, if the Jags have 10 and you're within a game of two of competing with the division like that, that's what we were saying would happen, right? So, saying.
Listen, man. The Texans, I get it. You said that they're a tough matchup. I really don't think they're a tough matchup for us.
Okay, what equalizes? Tell me. Oh, you think you're going to run the ball on them because of their defensive tackle situation? Is that it?
Well, I mean, but that's the thing. The Texans, we usually have our best running games against them. JT usually, like last year, the final game he had 188 yards. It resulted in a loss or whatever, but that's also because again JT was dealing with some injuries last year, so they, Tyler Goodson got some burn. But he had 188 yards against them last year. The first game last year when we played them, AR had his way. He had his way against that defense. And I get it. They added the Neil Hunter, Will Anderson's in the second year.
They had injuries in the secondary too. Like that was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't know who the hell their second corner is. Behind Stingley, their cornerback situation ain't really that great. So like, I don't know. I think the Texans every single year, even when they had Deshaun Watson and they were good, we just always have the Texans number. Like or we have a player that just kills their defense. Is JT now? It used to be T.Y. Hilton. Like,
yeah, right. It's just like the Jags previous to last year going to Indy. You just had the number. Like
exactly. Just like the Jags have our number whenever we go to Jacksonville.
I wasn't trying to take their
the Jags have our number since 2014. This has been 10 years. It's like
I'll have you know, I dropped that in an article I was writing for Jaguars on SI. Bing! I checked that number 3 times. It just felt wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I just think is that way when it comes to the Texans. Now they may win in Indy week 1, but when we go to Houston, we likely win that game. We love playing at NRG. I don't know what it is, but we love playing at NRG. So
you know the Jags did the same thing. There's something to be said for playing indoors, I guess. But I mean, you guys do as well at Lucas Oil. But like, that's a great experience too, man. Lucas Oil is a great venue, by the way.
Yeah, it's a beautiful stadium.
Well, and the fans there are smart. Like Seattle fans take a lesson, okay? Like Colts fans were intelligent. And man, listen, I could tell you a story when it was Reggie Bush and Reggie Wayne on the field, and both sides be shouting Reggie at some point. That was silly. Anyways, see, now you got me going nostalgia. See, Lou, tell the world where you can be found, bro.
Yeah, so y'all can find me on Twitter at DropBallsPod. Y'all see the name right there, but at DropBallsPod. On Instagram, it's at DropBalls_pod. And then also, y'all can catch us on YouTube doing Sports After Dark after hours, and playback as well, doing Sports After Dark. I think we have something coming up where we're discussing linebackers or middle linebackers or something like that. Our top 10 list on middle linebackers and tier lists. We're going to do that in playback. And then, everything else is on YouTube. But yeah, you can catch me on Twitter, man. That's where I be at all the time, on Twitter.
Dude, he's good to follow people. Get a hold of your life. Follow CeeLou. I can guarantee you're going to enjoy yourself. He got takes everywhere. I mean, he's a Colts fan. I'm pretty sure that's why he wants to go to Greece, is because the flag is blue and white. But I've seen him have takes from everywhere. I've seen women's basketball takes. Some good ones. Yeah. While we're on the conversation, that's right.
I talk everything, man. I'm well versed in every sport. Well, besides like soccer, Still trying to get into that.
Not feeling the football. Okay. Well, Indianapolis has as an expansion team to the MLB. I look forward to seeing what you do when they get there. Anyways, or not MLB, MLS. See, I can't even get it right. Silly Americans. Anyway, great to have you in, CeeLou. Always fun. And we're gonna do it again.
Appreciate you, man.
Guarantee it. Likewise, brother.
All right.
All right. Hey, listen, always a good time. I opened this show with Travis D. Holmes and CeeLou, and I'm about to go to the General Mike Patton and then Patrick Creighton. You know who wins? America. Anyways, with that in mind, let's go ahead and get America winning by bringing in Mike Patton of touring the AFC South. Speaking of continuing traditions here on the Student of the Game, it's time to talk Titans. That means it's time to talk to the general, the one in the tank, in the bus, whatever vehicle helping you tour the AFC South on the regular basis. My man, the general, Mike Patton. What's going on, man? It's good to see you again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good to see you again as well, man. And, another day in Nashville. It's actually sunny, but it's actually a little cool outside, which is a little strange for August.
Hey, listen. It's down to 81 in Orlando. I'm excited. Please note the use of the terms down to 81. That's what it is in Florida, man. But we're talking about. I first of all, I notice how since we've talked, like you rocking a different hairstyle and stuff, and there's a change and an evolution. You're bringing a bit more style as we're going, kind of like the AFC South. So you wondered where I was going with that. Kind of like the AFC South, where it used to just be a lot more efficient. We're going to run the ball. That's what we do. And then there's a little bit more jazz in the AFC South. It's gone to an arms race, as I will certainly talk about on my 3-point conversion AFC South preview article, by the way. Bing! All that in mind. But let me ask you, like the Titans in particular, Derrick Henry running the show, the main threat. Ryan Tannehill's there, and he's nice and everything. But, they're a run first team. Then they start getting involved in getting some pieces. They try and fail the Julio Jones experiment, but DeAndre Hopkins is sticking there really nice. And now they've completely revamped that receiver core. I think the Titans are kind of the example of seeing Trevor Lawrence get into the division. And while he's not the top quarterback in the league, it used to be hands down he was the top quarterback in the division. Now they are Stroud in there, AR's in. Like, you see the arm race forming, and the Titans kind of trying to keep up with the division, right? I mean, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, definitely a good way to put it. I mean, for better or for worse, Trevor Lawrence was the quarterback that everyone looked at as, hey, he's the quarterback of the AFC South. And last year, that's kind of been flipped on its head. And now going into this season, it's a critical year for Trevor Lawrence, but it's also a critical year for the Tennessee Titans and a particular quarterback for them as well.
Yeah, and listen, the man you've dubbed the mayonnaise messiah. Listen, so I can give you credit again. That's you. That's General that did that. I here's the thing, and I think this is the one place where you and I disagree the most when it comes to Tennessee. If you've seen any of our exchanges on Twitter, Travis and I both have wondered. Listen, what they're doing with the receiver corps is awesome, and what they've done with the upgrades, right? They got Calvin Ridley. They got not D'Amico Ryans.
Tyler Boyd.
Yeah, Laurie Burks is Burks is part of that rotation. I like what you're doing in the passing game with Tajay Spears and that running back core, changing around to guys that can catch passes as good, if not better, than Derrick Henry. Maybe they can't block as well, but there's certainly enough weapons there. Regardless of how I feel about the mayonnaise messiah, the Titans have put this group together and said, hey, you have no excuses. I mean, do you kind of agree that that's the mentality or the situation there?
Yeah, the mentality is basically, of course, the second year for Will Levis, but also you have to remember he's on a 4-year deal. He doesn't get that 5th-year option because he's not a first-round pick. So the Titans have to find out what they have in Will Levis. So, yes, everything is on terms of Will Levis, showing that he's the guy this year at quarterback. So, yeah, that's I would say it's definitely a little bit of pressure on him, not probably heavy pressure, but definitely some pressure on him this season.
Yeah, and I remember this time last year we were talking about, Music City, Malik Willis and all that trying to be the thing. That experiment failed. And I'll ask, I haven't paid a lot of attention to the offensive line for the Titans. We mentioned the skill position upgrades, but is there an opportunity for there to be exposure there to where Will Levis just won't have enough time to chuck the ball the way he does?
I will say this: the addition of Lloyd Cushenberry at center has been huge for the Titans. He was one of the top centers out there on the market. They bring him in. The sudden retirement of Sadiq Charles was one that kind of surprised a lot of people. However, Dylan Radnitz has been a guy that's definitely done well under the tutelage of Bill Callahan. So he's a guy that, it's going to be a big year for him. It's a contract year as well. So I would say he's a guy that's definitely they're depending on to be a guy. When they first brought him in, he was brought in as offensive tackle, North Dakota State. Didn't quite pan out that way, so he's got a second chance to make a first impression as a right guard. So that's going to work for them. That's going to hopefully work for them, I should say. And then, of course, you have the tackle position with Nicholas Petit-Ferrer. But I would say the right side is more question marks than, the center, and they're going over to the left tackle. I think J.C. Latham, they believe him. They do believe in Skoronski as well. And then Lloyd Cushenberry to man all those things in the middle. So, I would say even with them not having a ton of I would say even with them, last year it was pretty bad. He had no time, Levis, at all. This year, I think definitely is going to be a little bit smoother and a little bit more time back there as well, just in general, because you have a coach that's more committed to the pass game than the previous coach was.
Yeah, and I don't think Mike Vrabel was the problem. I don't think that's something that really shook that team up. I think his firing was more kind of, what's his word, to try to find a new ceiling, right? In the NFL, the hype and the conversation is always his offensive or better, and we could go on about that. But do you feel like Callahan, or I guess I should say the younger Callahan, is adapting well and will have a team ready to go in week one? Because honestly, for me, and I did the same thing to Mike Vrabel when he first started out as the Titans head coach. There was a game he probably would have won in like week 10, but because it was week 1 and they were playing who they were playing, and if I remember correctly, that might have been the Dolphins even. I picked that game as a loss, certainly because it was first game out. Does everything seem to be comfortable there in Tennessee with him taking over and all of that?
What seems like it's kind of a breath of fresh air. I mean, when you go out to the actual training camp, the energy just seems totally different. It was a lot more kind of, I guess, stiff energy, or just, kind of, it just was, I don't know. It just wasn't a lot of energy flowing through that building. Now you go out there, you feel a lot of energy flowing through the building. You feel a lot of just a little bit more lighter. And, contrary to what Mike Vrabel did, Brian Callahan is a little bit more straightforward in terms of answering questions. When you ask him a question, he literally tells you what's going on. There is no cloak and mirrors. There is no kind of coded talk at all. And it's just a lot more refreshing in terms of just the feeling when you're out there. And you get that from the players as well. You definitely can tell. I mean, I know Chig Aquanko was talking about it earlier in, I believe, the OTAs, about the different feeling out there and how it just feels a little lighter out there with Brian Callahan as the head coach.
And listen, we've talked quite a bit about the offense, but whether it's L'Jarius Sneed or any other the big gets, I would argue that Simmons that they brought in too. I would argue that the defense had the better makeover overall. I mean, yeah, sure, you added a lot of weapons and stuff. I still don't believe in the mayonnaise messiah. He spent a lot of time throwing it to guys with the wrong color jerseys. You mentioned the protection to seal that up. I'll be honest, you talking about that did more for me to understand your confidence in the mayonnaise messiah than anything you said on Twitter. I'm going to say that right here because I'm offensive line biased. That's what I do. but defensively, I feel like is where they made the biggest upgrades. Would you agree with that?
I would say yes and no. Yes, in terms of the corners, because they're the only team in the AFC South they can look at and be like, hey, we've got two corners we can depend on. In terms of outside.
Right.
I know the Colts, they want to say Kenny Moore and Juju Brents, but, Juju Brents got to stay healthy. The Texans, they got Derek Stingley Jr. and maybe a rookie on the other side. The Jaguars, they've got Ronald Darby Jr. across from Tyson Campbell. So, I would say that part is solid. You bring in Quandre Diggs, bring in Jamal Adams to give you a little bit more variety at safety and veteran leadership and more of attack guys. And then, of course, you and T'Vondre Sweat as a rookie inside. So that, all those additions, that works. I do think that the losing Danico Autry is still looming huge for me. I still want to see how that kind of pans out. And then also at the inside linebacker position, they brought in Kenneth Murray from the Chargers. However, the other position, losing Aziz hurt them as well. He was a leading tackler and a leader. And, you've got Jack Gibbons stepping in. But to me, I like Jack Gibbons, the way he's able to diagnose things like that. However, I'm just not all the way sold on him being a starting linebacker in the NFL or for the Titans at this point. So that's where I'm kind of like, I don't know. And then also, Arden Key is going to be eligible to play. He actually did win his appeal for his suspension, so he isn't getting suspended for 6 games. He'll be around in the first 6 games.
And listen, for him, outing Trevor Lawrence the way he did, despite all of that and any of that, he's a fun dude, man. I've never forget getting to talk to him in the locker room some. So you got a real gem coming back in the locker room, man. Enjoy that. But I'll say this, as you're going through talking about the Jags with what they're going to do at corner, I would be remiss if the tour bus didn't take a little bit of time to stop. At least, maybe you got something on the way to a next rest stop there on the AFC South tour. Darian Jones is probably more likely to end up starting before the end of the year over Ronald Darby. So, I mean, take what you will with that information, but I think I should at least throw that out there.
Well, I hear you. I think maybe Darby is going to be on a short leash, and then maybe one of the young guys step in there. But, if I had my choice, just looking at the Jaguars and the young defensive backs, I would go with DeAndre Prince. I just don't think he's going to get that chance as early as Darian Jones will. But I think DeAndre Prince is the better corner, in my opinion.
I mean, well, I'll say we can talk about defense all we want to, but we got to make sure we still throw love to Jeffrey Simmons at the defensive tackle spot. One of my favorite players to don a Titan uniform, and he's a beast no matter what. That's if I don't stand for him, I'm not doing my job here as somebody having you in the building.
Him and Big Clint inside That's going to be nasty. That's going to be nasty because I've definitely seen Devondre Sweat up close and personal at practice. And boy, oh boy, for a big man, he has some sweet feet for a big man. Good gracious. I'm looking at this. I'm like, wow. And he definitely good with it. He like any college defensive lineman, still needs work, you hand placement, things like that. But with the intangible, the things that he has, the abilities that he has, they're pretty unteachable, basically.
Yeah, you can't teach that kind of agility. I mean, no matter what, man, listen, as a large man with a little bit of movement myself, I know you don't teach that. I've many a round body collapsed after conditioning drills. I know exactly what you're talking about. And the Titans, it's not exactly like they were bad in the middle on defense there too. It's a big part of what kept the Jaguars out of the playoffs was that performance on week 18 to make that happen. So for them to bolster that, definitely a dangerous prospect to run against. And then you upgrade Jamal Adams. I'll
tell you this. I'll tell you this about you said Jamal Adams. He actually is slated not to start right now. It's going to be Amani Hooker and Quandre Diggs, and then Jamal Adams. But you also have to remember where the defensive coordinator, Wilson, from Baltimore Ravens, he also, Denard Wilson, he actually came from a place where they did play 3 safeties at one time. So you also have to remember that. I could see Jamal Adams kind of playing in more of a Kyle Hamilton type role, but a limited part of that Kyle Hamilton role, though. Being that close to the line of scrimmage, blitzing, or in the flats type of guy that they used Kyle Hamilton at times, or run support. I could see Jamal Adams being that type of guy more than being the Kyle Hamilton that's out in the field, out in the open field making plays on the ball. No, he's not going to be that guy. He's going to be the version of him that's close to the line of scrimmage, in my opinion. That's what I kind of envision.
Yeah, and we was talking run stopping too. That makes perfect sense. Yeah, he's him being a roamer with his experience and all of that at this point in his career. Yeah, I didn't see him being a roamer either per se, but him getting in there, thumping people. You mentioned Kyle Hamilton. I would throw in possibly the Honey Badger himself, one of those kind of guys, that kind of roam around and make plays about. But we don't want to evoke names like Ed Reed and John Lynch here. We're not trying to say they're all.
Oh no,
we're not. But there's a lie, General. No, I
will tell you. I will tell you too, though. Denard Wilson actually coached Jamal Adams when he had his best years in New York as a Jet. So there's the connection there between those two.
Okay, I think that'll be important to help him translate roles. A guy that can relate. That's an excellent point. I think that's something that gets overlooked too often by the non-in-depth football watcher. Well, here's the thing. I've had this argument with Travis on the Duval Dive many times. Bing! But do you feel like this year's schedule is easier than last year's? I mean, especially for the Titans, you have the NFC North, or excuse me, not having the AFC North, for example, on the list, big deal. Not having the 49ers on the schedule, also kind of a big deal. Do you feel like that could help them threaten the playoffs?
Definitely. I mean, facing the NFC North, which, I'm not saying the NFC North is terrible, but compared to the AFC North, that's a breath of fresh air. So, yeah, they're definitely doing good. They don't have to see the 49ers, don't have to see the Seahawks, don't see any of those teams in the NFC West, because I still think the NFC West is very, very tough, minus the Cardinals, which we don't know what they are. Right. So, I definitely say the schedule is easier compared to last year. However, you still got to line up, play the games.
Yeah, that's a fact of the case. You got to stay healthy. Something that the Jags have had problems with too already. We mentioned earlier DeAndre Hopkins is going to miss some time, for injury. Or we mentioned Hopkins earlier. We didn't mention the injury, but he's going to miss some time. I think the schedule goes off to a relatively easier start. Like, I feel like the Bears are kind of that's not a gimme. It's just such an unknown. We don't really know.
It's a battle of unknowns, honestly.
Yeah.
You don't know what the new Titans offense is going to look like.
also correct, but I also do know we mentioned we're going to see Simmons in the middle, and Caleb Williams may in fact have a welcome to the NFL moment in Game 1. That's kind of what I'm relying on there too. But listen, we flirted with the schedule. We've gone around the ball. I've had my fun talking about the mayonnaise messiah. It's crunch time. I'm gonna.
Did you buy the perfume yet?
I did not buy the perfume yet. It's talking about smelling.
Or the cologne. I'm sorry.
I mean, I assumed because it was Will Levis and he's so pretty, it would be called perfume. But because quarterbacks, Mike, that's all. But with all that in mind, man, I would be. You threw me off with the cologne. I forgot about that issue, dude. With all that in mind, we flirted with the different changes. I've had my fun talking about the mayonnaise messiah. You reminded me of the cologne. Let's get into the schedule. How do you think that's going to break down? What's the win prediction you have for the Tennessee Titans in 2024?
I think what's funny is I think you have a lot of people out there predicting the Tennessee Titans that don't watch the Tennessee Titans or don't know the Tennessee Titans.
Mm-hmm.
It's flat up, but because you see a lot of people have them third, fourth, and having a horrible season. I'm just like sitting there thinking in my mind, did they not see the holes that they filled this offseason? Did they not see? I mean, are they? It kind of makes me rack my brain like, wow, what's going on here? Do they need to bring me in to talk about this team? But they should. But hey, they think they have the experts, so I'm gonna let them have it. But to me, I think this team is an overachieving team this year in terms of what a lot of people look at them. It's not overachieving for me, it's just overachieving for those that don't think they're going to be very good.
Kind of like me picking the Texans for 7 wins last year. Yeah, I got you.
And I mean, nobody thought the Texans would ever be any good last year, and then boom, they win the division and then win a playoff game at that. So, I think that the Titans are going to be better this year, but I don't think they're going to be good enough to beat the Texans. However, I do think they are good enough to best the Colts and the Jaguars. So I will put them at 10 wins this year, 10-7.
10 wins. Okay. Well, here's my breakdown. I'm going to lead with this. You probably knew I wouldn't have that optimism because of all the way we've been talking on social media.
I know.
Bickering like brothers like we have been. However, here's where I'm going to shock you. I don't think I'm as pessimistic as you believe me to be. I see them splitting a 3-3 record in the AFC South. I have them going 2-2 against the AFC East. I will grant you that Buffalo game is a maybe. They could just as easily go 3-1. I'm with you on that. 2-2 NFC North, mostly because we don't know what we got from the NFC North. And then Chargers, Bengals, Red Tails, which to be honest, like I know they play the Bengals late. Will Joey Budd be healthy? That's a whole thing too. I get all of that. But I think they could beat the Red Tails. I just think Harbaugh and his trench warfare might be a little too much. He wins the battle of those rookie head coaches, but again, one that can go either way. I have them doing 1-2 in the bonus games. So because my math is what it is, I have them with 8 wins. That's, I was thinking 5 at one point, and I saw the schedule. I'm like, well, golly, can the mayonnaise messiah really throw that many interceptions? That was the
I'll say this, and a lot has made this his interceptions, and I understand, but some of the talk about him is I think y'all really don't like that this man put mayonnaise in his coffee. I mean,
it's more about the banana without the peel. Like, what are we doing?
That too. I mean, I think more of the comments, just reading some of the comments. And, I've asked people to go in depth what they talk about in terms of Levis and why they feel like he's going to be the reason they aren't going to do this, that, and the other. I asked them and no one can give me, well, some people can give me reasons, but a lot of people are just giving me just reasons that have nothing to do with football. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, just say you don't like the man. Just say you don't want him to win. Just say those things. Don't give me the, they're not going to win because of him. And then when I ask you about it to give me the reasons, what you think or why, you give me some, a whole bunch of baloney about it. And I'm like, come on now, so that's where I'm like, sometimes I think a lot of people don't want them to win or don't want them to be good because they don't like Levis. which is it's funny to me because I've literally asked people this and they can't come up with a reason why they don't like Levis or why they're so down on him.
Yeah, well, and because listen, because you came in my house and respectfully posed the question, I feel compelled to answer at this point because you're right. There's too many people out there that talk without knowing what they're talking about, like Emmanuel Acho and all that stuff. Trust me, I cover another mid-market team. I know a little bit about this. All right, people talking about they don't have golf carts at Everbank when Trevor got hurt, and they failed to realize that he just didn't want to be carted off the field. I see the golf carts every week taking the press to the other side. Okay, what you mean they don't have golf carts? Anyway, so I say all that to say you pose a fair question. The general is not just a clever moniker, but here's where I question Levis. And I mean, I could just be lazy, kind of like I'm arguing in favor of Jordan over LeBron and go like, it's rings. For that would be, it's the interceptions. Don't worry, folks. I still think MJ's the GOAT. I just have a better argument than that. There's a different podcast. Anyways, so with Will Levis, a lot of it is the intangibles for me. Him, the whole show off the guns and, being basically an Instagram influencer, but a quarterback. Part of that does bother me. I will lead with that. The intangibles do matter in a lot of cases. And I think the main exception to me would be Cam Newton in his day, in his prime. Like, he's about the only guy that was as flamboyant, as flashy. By the way, Cam Newton stan over here, by the way. This is not me criticizing him, but you have to admit, amongst the typical franchise quarterback, he's different, right? He was the flashiest one, certainly, that's been in the Super Bowl lately, right? I don't like my quarterbacks like that. The other thing is, too, with the way he's concentrated, and I don't know if that's held pat, you'll pardon the pun, if that's held pat, but a quarterback bulking up to me is there's something about that I don't think translates to a proper throwing motion. You're stiffer. There's issues with that. So it's kind of some of the physical makeup. Does he have the speed as an athlete to move around like a quarterback? Yeah, I think he's good enough as an athlete. It's the things we haven't had a chance to see that insiders like yourself would. Is he making better decisions? Is he, knowing when not to take risks? Because if it's me, the way I play defense against Will Levis and the Titans is I do it in a way that worked for a while, at least, against Patrick LaVon Mahomes II and Tyreek Hill when they were struggling after that first pairing, that season where they were paired together, rather. They started, okay, we're going to cover the long ball. You have to throw it underneath. I'm going to throw some looks like that in at Levis and dare him to throw into the mistake. And I don't believe, let's put it this way, I think he's inclined to accommodate me. You may not agree. I think that's the disconnect. Does that make sense?
Well, I hear you. And of course, it's growing every day in terms of he does want to throw the long ball. But one thing I've noticed as well is he has taken a little bit more of the short to intermediate if he needs to. Of course, in practice, you're meant to make mistakes, not meant to be perfect. So, a lot of people watch practice like, oh, he's still making the same mistakes. I'm like, okay, that's not what you need to really look for. You need to really look for is making the right read. That's what you need to look for. But, as far as Levis, I mean, I get the talk of Instagram model and those type of things. But one thing I've always noticed about him, he is a leader. He is a leader of men. He gets out there and he talks to his teammates. Of course, something goes wrong. He's going to tell them about it. But he's also going to be there clapping them up and stuff like that, too. And he cares about this. That's the one thing that people keep missing. In the press conferences, sometimes he wear hats. And you'd wonder why he's wearing a hat in the press conference after the game, right? It's because you could see the pissed offness in his eyes that they lost the game. And the first thing he would always say is, or one thing he would always say in every press conference, I just got to find a way to get us to a win. He didn't talk about how he looked and how this, that, and other. He always talked about how it's, I've got to find a way to get us to a win. I've got to figure out what I need to do to help this team get there. So he's definitely a team guy. And he's also a guy that studies a lot and prepares a lot and practices a lot. Rookie camp last year, he didn't turn on the TV in the room. Colton Dow was his roommate, wide receiver, the 7th round pick last year. He said he never turned on the TV. He just basically went straight to his book, reading his book the entire time. His playbook, folks. not just a book. But
Yeah,
yes.
it wasn't a romance novel. We knew. Yeah.
So so while it may look like he's an Instagram model, he's that type of guy and whatever, he's just enthralled in the emotion of the game, and he's a guy that, you know, is for his team. The one thing I would say that he's got to stop doing, stop thinking he's out there, he's like Wolverine or Deadpool or whoever it is, running in there and taking these hits and thinking he's going to bounce back up every time. Like, he took a hit in the preseason the other night, and I'm like, okay, well, you can't take that. And he knows he shouldn't take that hit. It's just the competitor in him kind of overwhelms him at times. So that's where I think is the biggest thing that kind of that makes me scratch my head sometimes when it comes to Levis. Like, hey, you can't take that hit. No, I know you need to do this, but hey, if it's a third down or whatever, hey, yeah, you go ahead and do what you got to do. But it's like a first down or something like that, and you could avoid a hit. Yeah, you need to avoid the hit.
Yeah, I think that's true of young quarterbacks. We as 49er fans probably saw a few hits that Brock Purdy should have been taking in preseason. I totally get where you're going with that. Well, see, this is the thing. I'm just trying to get better to talk Titans and win a little bit more doing that. And the way I solve that problem is I talked to Mike Patton touring the AFC South. That's my solution. That's what worked for me. Anyways, Mike, man, awesome. We could probably run an hour on this, but I got three. I'm following you up with the guy who you introduced me to talk Texans here in a minute with Pat Creighton. So I got to make room for that and make all that work. And listen, man, tell the people where you could be found. Writings and audio, all of it. Don't let it rip.
Okay. All right. Well, you can find me, of course, touring the AFC South on the Mike Patton Network. You can also find it on YouTube. You can also find touring the AFC South on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. Now there is a Touring the AFC South website, touringtheafcsouth.wordpress.com. We'll drop the WordPress, but hey, right now, that's what we're rocking with. 2 articles a week up there. I've got an interesting one that Jacksonville fans will probably want to read pretty soon. And let's see, of course, I've got a few other things going on, but you can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePatton 82. The artist formerly known as Twitter. Of course, we paying homage to Prince, which of course, remember, people used to call him the artist formerly known as Prince when he went by the symbol. So there we go. So yeah, you can find me there at Mike Patton 82.
See, that's the best way to do. Paying tribute to Prince is a bonus. I tell people all the time, I can't say I'm on X. I'm a family man. That would just send out the wrong. Anyways, no, you overcame that challenge nicely, and man, you help people overcome some ignorance about the Titans. That's a beautiful thing all the way around. So appreciate you jumping in, General. Okay, and with me next, listen, this is a treat already because I remember the first time I had Patrick Creighton on a Believe in Texans podcast, by the way, and other outlets. And I focus on the Texans here, obviously, because this is the preview we're doing. But I remember when I first had you on the Student of the Game, this has become a tradition now that you check in for the previews. And I remember the absolute, what's his word, tirade delivered to the football public at large. Very humorous, by the way. And now I think I remember last year, and I was seen as an optimist for picking them to win 7 games, right, Pat? Now there's a lot of just a lot of hype. CJ Stroud's blown the doors off. Everybody seems to forget that that's not the only big draft pick they pick up. Like, what the turnaround, granted, aided and abetted by the Cleveland Browns in some ways, but the absolute turnaround, what is it like just covering that from where you sit there in Houston?
Well, first of all, I don't know exactly how sure I am about tirade. I don't know if I want to be labeled in this manner. You make me come off like I'm some kind of raving lunatic who's just going to come out here and start spewing stuff and yelling and screaming and going on for like 7 minutes at a time. And I have never done anything like that in my entire life. I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. And we need to put a stop to that right here and now.
I deeply apologize. My bad.
Man, I tell you what, last year, because like I was very much on the CJ Stroud hype train, right? From September 2 years ago, I was all about CJ Stroud, and 90% of the Houston market was all on Bryce Young.
Right.
And
Absolutely right.
all this, Bryce Young, they screwed up getting Bryce Young, and I'm like, no, the guy they want is CJ Stroud. The guy they want is the best quarterback in this draft is CJ Stroud. It's not that close. Y'all make a big deal out of, but he went to Alabama, and because CJ Stroud went to Ohio State, therefore he is destined to fail because other quarterbacks from Ohio State have failed. Couldn't we do the same thing about Alabama for a long time? And it was a long time before Joe Willie had played football in the NFL, and the last time Alabama had a quarterback that was any good. But anyway, I was very much on this idea of, the Texans were looking at a lot of young talent infused. They were looking at a handful of veterans who were really pretty good veterans that kind of flew under the radar as far as what the Texans were bringing in, guys who were good players. And you have the right coach in place, and that schedule was not going to be hard because if you looked at, the rest of the division, only the Jaguars were really a decent team. Everybody else could go either way. Right.
Right.
I thought the Titans were due for a big fall, and they fell off a cliff.
Mhm.
And, the Colts were very up and down, probably more up than they should have been, but they were very up and down.
I think you and I both were, again, like we were unique in optimism in the Texans. We were also unique in pessimism for the Titans, and we got that one right too. So I hear where you're going on that 100%. And I think with the Colts, it's weird because of AR's injury history. But go ahead. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
And that's part of the issue, right? We don't know what Anthony Richardson's going to be. We don't know if he's going to stay healthy for more than 6 quarters this year. It would be nice. I mean, I would like to see him play.
Yes.
The guy is tremendously talented. I'd like to see him get a chance to succeed or fail on his own merits.
Mm-hmm.
And look, the fact that they won as many games last year as they did with Gardner Minshew tells you, like, that's a pretty good team around him. They're strong, in the trenches. They're a fundamentally good team. They obviously have a very good running game.
Mm-hmm.
What the Colts to me are a team that is like that quarterback leadership position away from being a really competitive team. And I think if Richardson can stay healthy and he can continue to develop, for him, it's the passing and the accuracy from the pocket. What he is when he escapes the pocket. What is he in the pocket?
Mm-hmm.
And the Jaguars going to collapse again. Boy, the Jaguars jag things up all the time. It's almost like it's part of their DNA. If there's a way to screw it up, they find a way to do it. and it's really unfortunate because, when Trevor Lawrence suffered that first injury and then they rushed him back, it's like, man, this guy can't walk off the field and you're rushing him back in there the next week. You're not going to win another game. And sure enough, the only game they won was the game he didn't play.
And please note against the aforementioned Bryce Young as well, right?
Yeah. And it was just, they really did a disservice to Trevor Lawrence last year in continuing to push him to play through an injury, which then became 2 injuries, which then became 3 injuries, and just kept pushing this kid out there. And it's like, you guys need to take care of your dude.
Mm-hmm.
And the Texans last year, who, ran through like 12 offensive linemen and probably 10 defensive backs. They couldn't keep an offensive lineman healthy. They were burning through guys in the secondary. They were picking guys up all year long. They must have picked up like 6 guys just off the scrap heap during the season who were DBs because they couldn't keep anybody healthy. So you expect some sort of regression to the mean when it comes to the number of injuries they had to set positions, right? The offensive line should be better. The secondary, they should be better. Just don't get hurt. You're better. And when you look at what the Texans were last year and how fast the rebuild accelerated because of D'Amico Ryans, because of CJ Stroud, because of what CJ Stroud meant to Nico Collins and Tank Dell and Dalton Schultz, the fact that they set a team record in sacks last year, and despite going through all the injuries, that this was a team that lost games they should have won. They had no business losing to the Panthers or the Falcons. These were games they should have won. And you look back at that team and say, you know what? Did they overachieve? Yeah, they won 10 games. And nobody in the world thought they were winning 10 games. I had said the beginning of the year, I think they were a 7 to 8 win team. And if absolutely everything in the world felt perfectly in order, maybe they have a shot at 10 wins. They won 10 wins and things went sideways all over the place.
Right.
So it does make you kind of wonder, well, how good will this team be its second year? And there's a lot made about, well, the Texans, they're going to play a first place schedule this year, and they're going to play tough quarterbacks this year, and they're going to have they're going to play tougher teams. I'm like, y'all acting like the Texans aren't getting any better. Like they're going to play all these good quarterbacks. Well, what is CJ Stroud? CJ Stroud suddenly turned into a pumpkin. We didn't know about it. Like the idea of, well, the Texans are going to stay the same, but everybody else is going to get better. I don't understand this logic. The Texans are so much better than they were a year ago. CJ Stroud now has a second year getting under his belt in the NFL system with Bobby Slowick. Now has more weapons with Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon to complement Nico Collins and Tank Dell and Dalton Schultz. And the offensive line, just be healthy, they're better. Kenyon Green has looked really good so far in training camp. Drew Scruggs has played well in training camp. Those were the two positions, center and left guard, that they were worried about. Like, we haven't even seen Laramie Tunsil in the game yet.
Yeah, and that's a wild thought too, because just the way. Listen, I'm a big Tunsil guy. I wrote for the Dolphins Wire when he was drafted and followed him. I hated that at the time him getting shipped as a for draft picks. I know why Flores did it. I supported every one of Flores' moves. That doesn't mean I wanted to see the big man go, and because he was just fun to cover, man. For a while he was it protecting Ryan Tannehill. So I hear all that. Let me approach this because you broached the question nicely. What, the Texans aren't going to get better? All I got to do is stay healthy. Which in the marathon that is an 18-week, 17-game season, not necessarily the simplest of tasks, but it's a great point. I think where the Texans meet the most resistance is in two places, and then you can comment this. If we're talking about regression to the mean, a lot of people are assuming that Joey Burr does that in Cincinnati. And I think in the case of the Colts, a lot of people are assuming that Anthony Richardson is going to be healthy. Now, in the previous segment here talking to CeeLou, I led with saying, hey, listen, I'm not confident in your team because I don't think Anthony Richardson could do it. Would I be right to put, I guess then, and I know we're straying from the AFC South here, but this point was good enough. I had to bring this up. Joey Burr, also with his injury history, I'm getting Kevin Durant vibes there. Am I wrong?
I don't know if we're at that point yet.
Okay.
Durant suffered a catastrophic injury at a little bit older age. And now all those minutes that he's played over the years are kind of beaten up on his body. Durant's still an elite player when he's on the court. He just can't play every day. Going in, he can't play every day. Burrow hasn't suffered the catastrophic injury as yet. Most recently it's been like he's got the calf issue and things like that. Things that are limiting his mobility, things that are, making him play not at 100%, but he's still able to play. I don't think that is the issue with Joey Burrow. I do think that there is an issue in Cincinnati when it comes to, well, Jamar Chase wants a contract. T. Higgins wants a contract.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're going to invest in Joe Burrow, you need to invest in the weapons and tools around him. You need to invest in your offensive line. You need to invest in your receivers because that's how you're going to win games. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you've got not one but two stud receivers and they can't get paid. The Bengals are a notoriously cheap organization to begin with.
Yeah. And
you now have the kind of quarterback who's already gotten you to one Super Bowl.
Yes. And
you're like, okay, is that good enough for the Brown family? I think that's a bigger question. Is that one Super Bowl they didn't win? They fought hard. They won Super Bowl they didn't win. Is that good enough for the Brown family?
That's an interesting point. And in an organization that in the not so distant future was often referred to as the Bungles, right? Maybe yearly relevance until your quarterback gets hurt is the better case scenario, and the Brown family right on that. That's a great point too. By the way, I think there's like a wrist thing that they're still trying to figure out with Joey Burr. That's why I put it there. Catastrophic as far as movement, no, I think he still has that. But if this wrist thing that he's dealing with is lingering, his ability to be a quarterback, even if it's offhand, is challenged. far greater than any other players would be with that. That's kind of how I took it there. But yeah, I agree with you. We may not be at the Durant point yet, but that was the only guy I could think of immediately to set the table. But let me round it back here to the Texans. And here's the thing. I think the Texans being where they are and rebooting and going through the quarterback shows a continued change in the culture since 2 years ago, right? Who were the premier dudes 2 years ago, right? It was Jonathan Taylor for the Colts, Derrick Henry for the Titans, and then, well, it was more that you ran by committee to keep the ball out of Davis Mills's hands, and then Trevor Lawrence came in, although he was backed by James Robinson at the time. There was a running presence. This used to be a division to run the football. I think this previous draft or two has made this an arms race, literally, in that the quarterbacks are now, chucking it. And CJ Stroud is the most successful to have joined that arms race. I mean, would you agree with that kind of that theory, if you will?
CJ is the best pure passer in the division. And that's not close. He is the best pure passer in terms of ball placement, in terms of accuracy, in terms of processing, in terms of speed. When you're making that when you're processing the processing speed, the read speed, he does everything better, faster than everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And even if Anthony Richardson is healthy, he is not going to be able to be as accurate or get through his reads and progressions as fast as CJ Stroud does.
That's not his game yet. You're absolutely right. Yeah,
these are non-debatable things. And while Will Levis is a very strong arm, he does have a tendency to throw the ball to the guy wearing the wrong color jersey. Trevor Lawrence, I think Trevor Lawrence is a good quarterback. He is never going to be the generational guy he was once hyped up to be. And I think as soon as people understand he can still be a good quarterback in this league, still be a very good quarterback in this league, but that he's never going to be in the Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, soon to be CJ Stroud. He's never going to be in that conversation. And understand you can still win even if he's not in that conversation. The faster they're going to get it. He's never going to be a top 6 quarterback. He's a good quarterback. He's got a great arm. He's very athletic. He can be accurate. I think the processing is slow sometimes. And I don't know if that's necessarily a function of him, a function of their offense, a combination of such, because he has had, a handful of different coaches there. And I thought the fact they brought Urban Meyer in there was the worst thing they could have done to him. Well, worst thing they could have done to the whole damn team.
Yeah.
And you still see he has trouble getting through his reads, particularly at critical joints in the game. And maybe the way that should be coached up is 1, 2, go. If he has trouble getting through to read 3 to read 4, after you've gone through read 1, read through, tuck it down and go.
Mm-hmm.
Be that weapon so that the defense has to then account for the fact that, hey, this is a guy who can be a mobile quarterback and he can run. He's a big dude. And if you don't take the right angle, he'll throw you to the ground. Just take off and go. Now make the defense play you different. Does that help you with read 1 and read 2? He's got to give them something different because what he's been doing isn't working.
And I'll see that and meet you here. At the very least, throw that game plan in there every so often against air quotes tougher teams, because and listen, this may be a edgy and charged statement to make, but people look at Trevor Lawrence and forget the athlete he is. That's just a thing that happens, right? They see sunshine. They don't think he can run the ball like that, but he's good for a first down with his feet basically every Jacksonville Jaguars football game, and people completely forget that. I would also submit the interior line since his time there has been an issue for various reasons. And I know it's like, oh, but Kyle, every quarterback needs a good O-line. Obviously. But the challenge is unique to the interior. Not every quarterback has the A-gap be what's given up to where it's the immediate fall-apart zone. And I think that was last year in particular, the real nasty moment. But to your point, yeah, listen, he needs to prove that he can be that more consistent guy and bring the turnovers down and things like that. I don't think anybody's going to argue that as far as the numbers.
And if they're going to continue to have issues on the interior line, they're going to have to keep it back in to block, and they're also going to have to roll him out. You're going to have to get some of that old Gary Kubiak offense where they're going to roll him left, they're going to roll him right, they're going to move the offense to almost one side of the field, and it's going to be read one, read two, go.
And that's what Britton Strange and Gabe Davis are for. I totally believe that that's a big part of it, is to get them bigger and stronger on the outside, or better protection there when NTN isn't in the football game. No question.
Yeah. And you're going to have to bring guys in, move them around to get the defense to get off balance. You may have to use some of your bigger guys there and reset them. Maybe you use your fullback like an H-back. Maybe you use a tight end that comes across and shifts sides of the field so that you force the defense to make adjustments. But you're going to have to do different things. If the interior of the line is still a weakness, you've got to do different things to protect your quarterback. Your quarterback can't be under siege within 2 seconds and unable to step up in the pocket.
Exactly. And the good news is for the Duval Dive out there, Pat, all those guys that you mentioned, the tight end to make people think twice, that's Evan Ingram. The fullback, I don't think he should have been drafted when he was at pick 2, but Britton Strange can certainly fill that role, right? And then you mentioned bigger on the outside. Listen, I watched Gabe Davis block all throughout college and be a force. He did the same thing up in Buffalo. And while he may wear number 0, I can guarantee you that the Jags coaching staff is not expecting him to replace Calvin Ridley in and of itself. I think he's meant to be a Jay Jones replacement that could block. But anyways, let's bring it back to the Texans.
So we talk about the interior of the offensive line, right? That was the issue for the Texans last year also. Center and left guard were the big issues for the Texans last year, because at one point they were on center 5 and left guard 6.
Yes.
So that particular side of the line was very much an issue. And you saw CJ often, extending plays maybe earlier than he ever should have needed to extend plays. Teams would then try to blitz and they would come off that side. You'd overload that side, because in previous years, if you overloaded a blitz on the Texans, you put 3 guys off on one side or even 4 guys on one side when they were really bringing a house. That was a guaranteed incompletion, and you had a high chance for a turnover.
Right.
Stroud, because he sees the defense, understands the blitz, knows where he's going with the football, zips it right over their heads for a completion. Texans haven't had a quarterback who could do that. Full stop.
No,
haven't had a quarterback who could do that. And with CJ's ability to offset the blitz, because he's able to make the reads and make them pay, it did alleviate some of the issue with the interior line, because he is capable of getting rid of the ball faster, and B, using his legs to extend plays. CJ has the athleticism to take off with the football. He just doesn't do it. He uses his athleticism to buy time to look down the field for a big play. And that is really, he has the ability. He could take off and run all day long. He just doesn't. It's not that. And I'm not trying to say, he could be Josh Allen and run for 600 yards. I think if he really wanted to, he could, but that's not his game. His game is to use his legs to create something big with his arm. I'm not trying to pick up 5 yards. I'm trying to pick up 50. And that's what kind of makes CJ special in that regard. And if they're able to shore that up, because Kenyon Green, who missed all of last season with an injury, looks a lot like the guy who they expected to get when they took him 15th overall 2 years ago. And Juice Scruggs, they took in the 2nd round last year and then missed, the majority of the season, to the point where when he came back, they actually had to use him at left guard because their 6th round pick was playing center, as they just burned through guys at the center position also. And at that point in the season, it was too late to teach Jared Patterson how to play left guard. So they had issues in that regard. They had George Fant playing tackle for most of the year. He was supposed to be the swing tackle, and he winds up, playing the starting guy, because, they got to move Titus Howard inside, and then he got hurt. So if they can be healthy, and they actually have, where you've got Tunsil, you've got Kenyon Green, you got Juice Scruggs, and then you have the right side of the line set up the right way with Shaq Mason and Titus Howard. That's a really good offensive line.
It really is. I like Shaq too. I mentioned Tunsil earlier. I like Shaq Mason as well.
Now, I don't know how well they're going to run block, because we haven't seen them do it. And that's really all it is. We haven't seen them do it. They were terrible at it last year. They also didn't have a lot of those guys. So what will that offensive line look like just being healthy and being the regular unit? They'll be better, but how much? The passing protection is going to be tremendous. We know they can pass block. It's going to be, can they run block? And this is not, an old 90s team where you're going to run, set up the pass, run, set up the pass. They're going to pass to set up the run.
Yeah,
exactly. The run is used as the changeup. The run is used to keep the defense offense, but you need to be effective with it. Last year, for the overwhelming majority of the season, they couldn't run the ball on Katy High School. This year, you got a little bit better running back in Joe Mixon. That's a guy who, every year, 1,100 yards, close to double-digit touchdowns.
With the Bengals offensive line, too. By the way, let's stress that offensive line was clearly, you could say what you will about the Texans line, Pat, but you got to admit, that was a far worse offensive line they went to the Super Bowl with, and Mixon was prolific, right?
No, the 5 park cars in Cincinnati are more Ford Pinto than Cadillac Escalade. So, and that's kind of what the Texans dealt with last year also. So from that point of view, this is a team whose offense should be better. When it comes to stopping the run, teams cannot stack the box against the Houston Texans because of Diggs, Tank, and Nico.
Yes.
Teams are going to have to figure out which poison they're going to choose.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you leave Stephon Diggs in one-on-one coverage, he's going to kill you. If you leave Nico Collins in one-on-one coverage, he is going to kill you. And you can't double 3 guys, which means even if you double Stephon and you bracket Nico, Tank Dell and Dalton Schultz are one-on-one, and they're going to kill you. Like, this is a team that offensively in yards, passing yards, was a top 6 team, but they struggled to convert in the red zone because there wasn't as much room to maneuver.
Yeah, exactly.
This year, I expect they're going to be top 6 in points because with the addition of Diggs and the addition of Mixon and a healthy line and the expected and continued improvement from C.J. Stroud, I don't know how you stop this team. I really don't. I am so excited for the Houston Texans this year because this offense could be one of the top 4 offenses in the NFL. They could be absolutely lethal because the ball's going to be in CJ's hands. And with the 3 wide receivers they're going to have going out there with Tank, Steph, and Nico, I don't know how you cover them. I just don't know how you cover them. Somebody is going to get one-on-one. And when they do, you better hope it doesn't go to the house because every one of those guys can take it to the house when the ball is in their hands, especially Tank Dell. And Tank is a guy that I think he's a guy who's probably going to get the fewest targets. But I also expect he's probably going to have the highest yards per catch. And that's a guy who could wind up putting up low-end wide receiver 1 numbers with like wide receiver 2-3 targets. Because he's going to get a lot of one-on-one, and there's going to be a lot of big plays.
And there's going to be certain games where they sold out on the other 2 guys, and he has like a bunch of one-on-ones like you're talking about. Like I remember games for the Falcons, like where Julio would go for 200 yards, and then like a week or 2 later, especially in that 15-1 season, where they would he would have like 30-something. It's because the other dudes around him were all good enough to win theirs. And Tank Dell is definitely that guy. I say all that to say, right? But you mentioned stopping the Texans. Here's how I do it. And it's not starting with the offense. Listen, man, you know this defense already. You've probably tried it against Peyton Manning at some point. You run the ball. And while I mean no disrespect to Foley Fatukasi, who I saw do some good things when he was healthy here in Jacksonville, your recent acquisition there, D tackle, I try to run the ball on the Texans first and keep that offense off the field. And if I can establish the run, minimize attempts, then I have what they would call a fighting chance. Now, I still have to stop them when they're on the field. I hear you, Pat. But would you agree that that's kind of the best approach to take against this team?
You think about it, it's how the Giants beat the Bills in the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
They ran the ball for 42 minutes. If you can keep their offense off the field, then that's the best way that's the best defense you can have. But the flip side to that is, I think the Texans defense is going to be really sneaky good. This is a team that's defense was pretty good last year, but when they went up against better offenses or better offensive lines, particularly more physical teams, they struggled. right? They struggled with the physicality of the Colts. They struggled with the physicality of the Baltimore Ravens. This team is different. Mario Edwards has had a tremendous camp, and he has been a very physical presence. Danielle Hunter is, I don't know what planet he comes from, but the dude is superhuman. Will Anderson Jr. is the reigning defensive player of the year, rookie defensive player of the year. They got better at the running back with Azeez Al-Shire, who's tremendous. And when they get Christian Harris back, they'll have Al-Shire and Christian Harris. Both of those two guys pull out their hairs on fire. So, I mean, you can't get a better – and this team is probably only going to play 2 linebackers the majority of the time. They're going to – I think you're going to see a lot of 5 DB, even 6 DB look. Jalen Petrie is kind of got a new role this year. Instead of just being a traditional safety, last year they tried him as the deep safety, the center fielder. This year they're playing him more like a rover. And he's closer to the line, and he's playing, sometimes he's lining up kind of like a dime linebacker. Other times he's playing more like a strong safety where he's like getting real close to the box, who's in the box. Jalen Petrie is flourishing in his new role. And with a guy like Kalen Bullock, who they drafted this year, who is a true center fielder, a healthy Jimmy Ward just got paid. Good job. And the fact that this secondary is looking like it can be really special with Stingley and Kamari Lassiter. I mean, you just saw in this game against the New York Giants, they didn't even throw at Lassiter. They didn't throw at the rookie. They said, no, we'll throw at Derek Stingley. And that got a pick and what should have been a second pick. Think about that insanity. No, we don't want to throw at Kamari Lassiter. Let's throw at Derek Stingley Jr.
He might still be hurt.
For the games he played last year, was probably the most dominant cornerback in the NFL. Let's test that guy. That didn't work out very well for Danny Picks. So, and as somebody who grew up a Giants fan, I've been fortunate that I got to see 2 quarterbacks in 50 years who are worth a damn. And Phil Simms and Eli Manning. Like, that's it. That's it. I don't need to see any more of the Dave Browns or the Danny Mannings, or the Kent Grahams. I'm good with all that.
I think you'd be happier with Jay Lorenzen playing that.
God bless his soul, but you know what? That dude, to be as big as he was and still be able to sling it, man, and make it to the NFL, man, props to him, man. I'm always team round guy. And when you can be that round a guy and still make it to the NFL at a skill position.
And he wasn't slow either, Pat. He could move.
No, he was a big team round guy.
Yeah.
He could move. You know what? It's sad the way it ended for him because he wound up having a lot of different medical issues before he passed away. But that guy, I mean, you couldn't not root for him.
Defying physics the way he did, I'm sure, was a factor. But yeah, no, it's you mentioning all these quarterbacks and how bad it went. I had to bring him up real quick. The conversation had to be lifted up, Pat.
I could have gone to like Scott Bruner. I mean, the Giants have had some straight trash quarterbacks many times. Oh my goodness. And you think about like the last 5-6 years of Eli Manning's career, they had no line. They had no offensive plan. They had no receiver. I mean, what a disaster. I mean, for a while he had OBJ, and that was it. It's like, all right, if OBJ is not open, death.
That was the game plan. Throw it to Odell, right?
Throw it to Odell. And, I mean, they didn't. This is a team that, probably, for a while didn't run the ball between Ahmad Bradshaw and Saquon Barkley. Like, they couldn't run the ball.
Rashad Jennings was hurt too often, yeah.
Insert, random guy. David Wilson had the neck injury, and that kind of ended his career really quickly. Yeah. They couldn't find a way to sustain that. Ahmad Bradshaw was a badass.
He really was.
That dude was like 5'8" and 200 pounds, and like his arms had his biceps had biceps. I mean, the dude spent 30 days in jail rather than pay a fine. Because he was such a badass, like, whatever, they ain't going to hurt me.
He was a better opportunity to concentrate on working out. That's right.
And then he shows up and he's ripped like hell. And it's like, holy cow, this dude is a monster. We used to crack jokes that, Ahmad Bradshaw would run over a guy before Brandon Jacobs would.
Yeah. the Earth guy, by the way. And I'd like DeMarcus Ware too, just to throw him out there so we can have the complete group. But yeah, that's just fascinating that the Earth guy would.
Yeah, and the Earth, Wind, and Fire, the Fire guy, which was Ahmad Bradshaw, he was the best of the bunch. Not even close, best of the bunch.
Man, I appreciate that throwback right there. Let's get into it, man. You validated me. You got a chance to wax poetic and be happy for your team, and still get a rant in there about bad Giants quarterbacks. This is a very well-rounded conversation with Patrick Creighton today.
It's funny. When I was growing up, Brooklyn, New York, when I was growing up on Long Island, my family was overwhelmingly, you're Irish, you're Italian, or both.
That's my best friend's dad, by the way.
And there's like the exceptions to that rule were so few and far between. Like you almost didn't even know they existed. You Irish or Italian or both. And if you wanted to have a battle between who could complain more, between your Italian mom or your Irish mom, imagine putting them together. And then it's like super powered complaining. So like I grew up learning how to bitch and moan about things better than anyone else in the history of the world. And then I got to grow up a fan of teams like the Giants, the Mets, the Knicks, the Islanders.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk about having reason to bitch.
I suppose we should all be thankful for this, Pat. You weren't born in Boston, and you didn't have to be one of those. That's what we'll be thankful for.
I said that the most important thing is I'm not a Jets fan.
Facts.
That's it. If I was a Jets fan, I probably would have just jumped off the Triborough Bridge.
Oh man.
In fact, it's not even called the Triborough Bridge anymore. Now it's been renamed, and I don't even know what the hell it's renamed.
Hey, a lot of people still call it Three Rivers in Pittsburgh too, man. I get you.
I'll jump off the Verrazano. That's still the Verrazano.
Man, listen, it's this conversation today to get the full, well-rounded experience, Patrick Creighton, is proof that all good things come to an end, my friend. But before we let you go, you got to give me a record prediction. Now, normally I have the guests go first, but in the interest of pure comedy, or I can feel super smart if I'm right, let me go ahead and go first, and you can tell me how wrong I got it. But so you got the AFC South, you got the AFC East, and NFC North, and the three bonus games of the Cowboys, Chiefs, and Ravens, right? And granted, I think when the Ravens are one of those teams, they don't necessarily have room to get better like the Texans do. The point you were making earlier, right? In division, I got 4-2. In the AFC East, I got 3-1. And then I think with the AFC North, or NFC North rather, it's going to be 2-2 there with 2-1 with the bonus teams, giving you 11-6. What say you, my friend?
So I understand that, I am here in Texas and I'm around the team a lot. We cover the team every day. Sports Radio 610, obviously the flagship home of the Houston Texans. We talk a lot about the Houston Texans, in case you haven't noticed. Also do the Believe in Texans podcast with former Texans receiver Cecil Shorts III. You guys know him down there in Jacksonville as well.
CS3. Yep.
So we do a lot of research and a lot of time watching the Texans, covering the Texans. So maybe I'm a little biased, but I got them at 12-5. I got them 12-5.
Well, one game apart. Okay.
Yeah, I have them 12-5. I have them winning the division. I have them the number 2 seed in the AFC.
Okay. So is it based on tie breaks, or are they a game ahead of some? I know we're getting in the weeds, but I'm just asking.
I think there's probably either one game or a tiebreaker that they'll be the 2 seed.
Okay. Yeah, and well, do you have Patty Mahomes at 1? I'll lead with that, and then we could guess the rest.
I can't imagine why anybody would think Patrick Mahomes would be number 1. I mean, it's not like all the guy does is, I don't know, win Super Bowls or something. And yes, I would have Patrick Mahomes at number 1.
We were 1 minute away from the Niners holding up the trophy. Everybody forgets that.
But then they Ninered.
Oh boy, listen. I'm glad.
Actually, I can't even say that because they didn't 9. The Chiefs just Chiefs. Like Patrick Mahomes did what Patrick Mahomes does, and he doesn't have as many rings as Tom Brady. He hasn't played as long yet, but Patrick Mahomes is going to go down as the greatest quarterback of all time.
I think he should. I don't think he needs as many championships to do that. Is what I'll say.
Did you see his interview where he talks about that? What was it? The behind the back throw to Kelsey, the no look throw, and he's like, "Yeah, Travis ran the wrong route, and I was mad at him."
Take this, mother.
Hey, I'm mad at you, so I'm gonna throw one of the greatest highlights you're ever gonna see in your life. Watch this.
Well, hey, listen.
As he combines Tom Brady and Magic Johnson into one person. And that to me is why Patrick Mahomes is going to go down as the greatest quarterback of all times. He does things that basically defy physics. But he does things to football that should not be possible. I don't care if he sounds like Kermit the Frog. I care that he throws like every ball has a GPS and a homing device, and it hits every single target he wants. The guy he's an alien. And when I say that with total respect, that he is not of this planet, and he has some kind of magical powers that he can do things that none of us can comprehend. And it's possible C.J. Stroud is also from that planet.
Yeah, I think there are those out there already who have him top 5 and can explain it to me in a way that I may not agree but understand. And I'll say this: people grasping a hold of their anger and frustration and turning into something great is how we get the talent. That is Patrick Creighton doing what he does on the airwaves and everywhere else, my friend. And
anger is a gift.
There you go. You're channeling Mr. Furious, the character by Ben Stiller in Mystery Men. There's a drop for you. Some of that Mystery Men schmack up there. You'll get that on all these shows. Pat Creighton, tell the world where you could be found, my dude.
All right, you can get me weeknights, 7 to 11 Central, Sports Radio 610 in Houston, on the Believe in Texans podcast, on the Big Orange Wagon Astros podcast, both available wherever you get your podcasts. They're on all platforms. And, of course, on the X-Sitter. What are we calling Twitter nowadays? Are we calling it Twitter? Are we calling it X? Are we calling it X?
I call it Twitter because I have a family. Yeah, I have a family. People don't need to hear if I'm on X. That's kind of my attitude.
Yeah, and when the kids get to college, they get on like, "Hey, Dad, can I try it now too?" So you can get me on there at P Creighton 1. It's P Creighton, just like the university, and the number 1, very simple. And you can get me on there as well. Before
you go, considering you reminded me who your co-host was, a quick CS3 story, right? So I have my best friend went to UCF. Big UCF fan, obviously. I cover UCF as well myself for the Black and Gold Banneret. Bing! And so Bortles had just gotten drafted there, and the Jags were doing a campaign around the state and, bringing goodwill and having signings and things like that. And CS3 was traveling with Blake. And so, I come up and I have a T-shirt that my buddy had given me, and unbeknownst to him, I was taking this T-shirt, getting these signatures, especially Blake Bortles and Storm Johnson, to take back to him. I'm like, and on that version of the Student of the Game pod, we talk about CS3 a lot because he made a lot of plays for the Jaguars. That's how he made so many plays. We talked to him enough. We just started saying CS3 because it was shorter than Cecil Shorts III, right? So I see him. I'm like, CS3, man. Hey, great to see you. Looking forward to you catching passes, from Blake and doing all that, man. And the way he signed it, like, he wasn't like rude or anything, but he was really quiet. And he signs it. So we go with collect Blake, and then we collect Storm Johnson. I present the shirt to Chris on my way home, who still has it framed in his house now. 2 days later, CS3 announced going to Houston.
You knew he was
awkward. So
looking for to catch places for Blake Bortles. Well, you see what happened.
What happened was, yeah, exactly. So I tell that story, obviously, bearing no ill will, but it was just a very funny thing that happened in the sports reality of things to come, man. So somewhere on the wall, somewhere in Orlando, CS3's name is on a T-shirt in a frame. Just thought you might like to know. But hey, Fat Man, thanks for jumping in, and fun as always. Hey, good way to wrap up the show, man. I appreciate you. We'll talk next time, brother.
You got it, man. Thanks for having me. Take care.
And that'll do it for this week's edition of the Student of the Game. Special thanks to Patrick Creighton, the General Mike Patton, Travis D. Holmes, and of course my good friend Chris Lewis C. Luke coming in with Sports After Dark. An honor, joy, and privilege to have you all. An honor, joy, and privilege to have you in listening tonight. Of course, I'm Kyle Nash, the Student of the Game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the Student of the Game. Check out my writings with Jaguars on SI, the Black and Gold Banneret, and then also check out my podcasts with the Duval Dive here Saturday night, 8 p.m. By the way, the Night Shift podcast, which is out now on Spotify and on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel. That's the Night Shift podcast powered by the Black and Gold Banneret. And then also my work with the 3-point conversion in A7BN Sports